You know, all those stunning design pictures you save on Instagram and Pinterest. The ones that instantly catch your eye and make you wish your home looked just like that. Well, you're not alone. I spend an unhealthy amount of time saving endless inspiration pictures thinking, why does this look so good? And why doesn't my home feel the same way? And after learning more about interior design, I can finally begin to answer some of these questions. But here's the thing. These are not just lucky shots of pretty spaces. It's not just about expensive furniture or having a perfectly staged room. There are specific design principles at play that create that effortlessly beautiful look. So, in today's video, we're breaking down exactly why those spaces look so good and how you can bring the same principles into your own home no matter your budget. Alright, let's go. So, one of my main sources of inspiration is Instagram. My feed is basically composed of silly cat videos, memes of questionable humor, and interior design pictures. A lot of interior design pictures. I also use Pinterest, but I like that on Instagram you can actually find and follow the designers behind all those beautiful spaces. And I find that this is harder to do on Pinterest. So for this video, I'm gonna select some of my favorite pictures from Instagram at the moment and try to identify and highlight some of the elements that actually make them work. Now, I'm gonna focus on the design aspects of these pictures, but they do have one thing in common, and this is how planned they are. These are not spaces that a random person shot with their phone. They are staged and shot by professionals, and this includes specific angles, post-processing, and of course, a space that doesn't include your day-to-day clutter. That being said, we can still learn a lot by analyzing the elements that make these interiors stand out. So this will be a mix of the core inspo and interior design concepts. I've done deep dives in specific pictures before in my design breakdown series, but I figured that some of you might be interested in seeing more decor inspo in one single video. So I decided to try this out, so do let me know if you like this, okay? Alright, let's start with this one. This is a very simple bedroom. It's a very achievable bedroom, let's say. We have white walls, white curtains, and a very beautiful bed with this pretty, it looks like a velvety headboard, which I really love, and nothing crazy going on the bedding or nothing like that. But there are two elements here that makes this picture look like a designer room. And the first thing for me is this decentralized artwork above the bed. So we have a relatively small piece of art for a large wall, and it is not on the center of the bed. And this just creates more visual interest, and it has this something that you just can't quite describe, but it is way more stylish than having like the same picture frame but on the center. And the other element that also stands out for me here is this sleek black wall sconce that is used as a bedside lamp. What is interesting here is the contrast between all those cozy materials. You know, on the bedding looks like they use some linen here, and the velvet of the headboard. The sconce is not like a textured material such as rattan or like a fabric shade or nothing like that. It is sleek, black, and this contrast, both with the texture, like the material, and the color black, is what makes this cozy corner a little more creative, a little more modern. These two elements really stand out for me here, and I think they represent how sometimes in design you just have to think outside the box and use contrasts in your favor to make like what otherwise would be a pretty standard room look like a designer thought about this little corner, you know? On to the next one. Here, we don't have like the small artwork above the bed for a change. There's actually nothing on the wall above the bed, which is not the usual nowadays. And some people might find that this is a problem, but I think that for this bedroom specifically, it is a design choice. And why I think this works is because we do have a large artwork here on the wall that's right next to the empty one. It's almost like the large piece connects with the emptiness of the wall that's right beside it. This contrast, like this visual movement of something that's very large and then nothing, this creates an interesting visual. There are some elements that are quite hard to describe, but I don't know, in my brain, they just work. So, yeah, bear with me for a second. It's like this push and pull movement, and the contrast between the two is what makes this space work. So, but yeah, overall, this is a very neutral bedroom, neutral colors throughout, except for this very nice pop of color through the bench at the end of the bed. And I think that just adds the right level of interest to this bedroom here. And I also like that they chose a black dresser as a nightstand here, because the black also contrasts with the white of the walls and the lamp and the artwork and everything else. So it's just a modern element that makes this bedroom feel a lot more interesting, in my opinion. But yeah. And what about this one? I love this. I just love it. I think that this one is a little bit more obvious. For a lot of people, the ceiling would never be an option. Like, you never actually consider the ceiling as part of your interior. And it is a huge part of the space you're designing, actually. And this bedroom does this by painting the ceiling green, which is the accent color the designer chose for this bedroom. Notice that the rest of the pieces are pretty standard, pretty neutral. We have a white wall, we have a white headboard, white sheets, and pretty simple lamps as a bedside lamp, and also the sconce above it. But other than that, we have the green ceiling, which is the feature of this bedroom, and it just makes it way cozier and visually interesting, to be honest. And notice how the green palette continues throughout. We have the ceiling and we have some of the bedding as well, some cushions here with the green, and looks like a throw here, a throw blanket that is also green. So yeah, this one is very beautiful. I wish I had my own place so I can paint the ceiling, but yeah, you know, when you're renting, at least for me, I'm not that motivated to change the place too drastically, because I'll just have to leave after a while and paint it white again. So yeah, my ceilings will remain white in the foreseeable future. Okay, moving on. Oh, and this is another one that illustrates super well the choice of color. Similar to the green that we've seen previously, this designer chose a neutral palette with red pops of color. So this would be considered a monochromatic color scheme. There's basically variations of red, and I think it works super well, especially because they don't use like bright reds. I personally love this more brownish tones of red. Yeah, for me this is beautiful. So if you're struggling with color, this could be an option for you. If you have like a favorite color, you can start there. You can choose different shades of the same color, and this would already make a big difference in your space if used correctly. And another thing that is also interesting here is how they used pendant lights instead of regular lamps here, or even sconces, and this adds height to this wall, and that is why we don't need any art or anything above the bed. It just looks interesting because you have something that's pulling your eyes upward. So yeah, another nice bedroom. And what about this one? this one is different, right? From the rest of the ones that we were looking at. And when I first saw this picture, I just immediately thought that it would be worth sharing because it has one big, I don't know, tip that I would like to share maybe. And that is, you can use an art piece that you already have or that you love, that you'd like to buy, as inspiration for the rest of the room. And they did it here by using the exact same color palette from the picture throughout the whole room. And this works super well. The art piece ties the room together. So we have the light blues, the deep reds, and the bright yellows, and this makes this room feel very creative. So yeah, if you don't know where to start choosing a color palette, having something that you already love as a reference could be an interesting idea. Okay, so before we move on to other parts of the house, lots of bedrooms here for now, I would love to share this one with you. This bedroom was designed by one of my favorite architects from Brazil, which is where I'm from, Mauricio. And I love the simplicity of this bedroom. It is a white bedroom. Nothing special about the walls. Nothing special about the bed. There's not even a headboard. And it still looks surprisingly chic and sophisticated in my opinion. And when I looked at it, I immediately thought, what makes this room so interesting and so chic and sophisticated and effortlessly so? And for me, it actually became clear after a while that simplicity is a feature. They added texture to this room, not only through the linen sheets or the rug, but the wall art is also white. But all the textures from the shells just makes it, I don't know, so unique. So sometimes you can add visual interest by varying textures instead of colors. And I think this works super well here. Another thing that makes this space stand out is this little vignette here at the corner. We have a super unique chair. Looks like it's made of, I don't know, a carved tree trunk or something like that. By itself, it already stands out. But they also added a very interesting artwork right next to it, and this bright green lamp that completes this trio of interesting pieces. And this little corner, this little vignette makes the bedroom. It contrasts with the simplicity of the rest of the room while still being quite simple. 3 elements, a chair, an artwork, and a lamp that together create this little corner of interest. So what we can take away from this picture is vignettes matter a lot. It's very, very helpful to think about those awkward corners or empty walls that you have in your home in terms of little vignettes. So instead of just having like a side table, think about a side table plus something else, plus a chair, plus a lamp. And if you think like in groups of 3, it works even better. Our eyes like 3 groups of 3 for some reason. So yeah, I think this sums up the bedroom section. Let me just get some water. Talking too much. Okay, let's take a look at some living rooms here and related spaces. When I saw this picture, one thing stood out to me, and that is the color palette. As I mentioned before in the bedroom section, sometimes you just need one color, and that is enough for your style and what you're looking for. In this room, for example, it is very neutral overall, but they chose blue as the accent color here, and they used different shades of blue throughout the space. And one thing that I think that is very interesting is how they used the ceiling again to bring more interest. And that is not only through like this interesting molding, but they also painted inside like the shapes of the ceiling, and that made it so interesting. I really liked it. The blue of the ceiling also reflects on the blue on the rug, and we have blue chairs here, velvet chairs, and we also have blue cushions on the chair, on this chair here, and on the sofa. And of course we have the large art piece, which is like the most contrasting piece in this room, because this room overall is very traditional. You know, we have traditional elements here, the ceiling, the golden frame TV, and the like the vintage mirror, the furniture itself. It's also traditional, and we have this modern art piece which is contrasting with the rest of the room. And this is by design. When you're expecting your final result to be a little bit more creative and out of the box, adding like one single contrasting piece might be enough to achieve this vision. And I think for this room it really is. And of course lots of blue here on the artwork as well. It just ties the whole room together. Now moving on to another very creative space. I love this space. I wouldn't have it in my own home, it's just not my style, but I like to follow designers and accounts that take me a little bit out of my comfort zone, because otherwise I would keep saving the same exact type of pictures as reference, and as an interior decorator it just, you know, it isn't healthy to just feed yourself within your own bubble of preferred style. So although I wouldn't necessarily design such a living room for myself, I can definitely see and appreciate how beautiful it is and how all the elements connect super well with each other. So what makes this living room so creative? First, the color scheme. Here we have a tetradic color scheme, which is 4 colors, the combination of 4 colors. We have red, blue, green, and yellow. And these are very pure hues. In addition to that, the intensity of the colors are different as well. So we have a bright red and a bright green, but the blue and the yellow are more pastel tones. So this contrast also contributes for the creative feeling of this room. And of course, the huge art, which takes up most of the space on this wall, is also another element that contributes for how interesting and creative this room looks. And also we have pattern. And pattern is another way to add visual interest to a room. And here we have the pattern on the what appears to be a sofa here, closer to the camera. And of course, the painting itself is like a huge source of pattern. We also have a little bit of pattern on the vase on the coffee table. I think all these elements together just make the room unique, creative. I love it. But I'm aware that a lot of people prefer more sober interiors or neutral color palettes. So let's take a look at that. Among all the other pictures, this one was probably the hardest for me to identify what actually makes this picture look like a designer picture. But if I'd had to sum it up, I would say the monochromatic color scheme, the sheer amount of natural materials and textures that we find here, and how curated all these pieces are. Like they look like they were made for this space. They are not generic in any way. Like the person really took their time to design this space, to find the perfect piece for every corner of this room here. So yeah. And of course the art, the wall art placement and style and selection and so on. So yeah. Okay, moving on. This one also has like a rustic feel. like a more traditional feel, very cozy, extremely cozy. And this coziness is achieved here mainly through texture. And this is what I would like to highlight from this picture here. Like the main takeaway of this room, I would say, is how interesting it looks in terms of texture. In terms of color, it's neutral. We basically don't have any color here, except for like a subtle touch of blue on this cushion and the green of the greenery. But other than that, it's beige, brown, white, and varying shades of these colors. If you're afraid of color, or if you prefer neutral interiors, they must be interesting in some other way. And texture is the easiest way to do that, to make a room interesting without using color. So notice how they went all in with texture here. They have layering rugs on the floor, they have boucle chairs, and the upholstery fabric on the sofas are also very natural, looks like a cotton or something like that, and a lot of throw pillows of different textures and patterns. Of course, the huge wall, like the brick wall, is a huge source of texture as well. And another element that also contributes for the coziness of the room is layering different elements. And this, of course, has to do with texture as well, because with extra layers, we do have theoretically, extra texture. But the layering itself is a design tool that is very powerful and that usually makes things look way more interesting. So for instance, here we have at the far back a console table or a credenza or something like that. Above it, we have a large art piece, but there are several decor elements that kind of obscure the art piece. This layer effect makes this little corner far more interesting. This other picture here illustrates this principle perfectly. So here it looks like we have an entryway, and the art piece is placed lower than it usually would be on purpose, because this layering effect creates a much more interesting vignette than it would be otherwise. So maybe try that on your entryway or on your living room or something like that. Okay, so I think that's it for living rooms. Let's move on to some dining spaces, which are probably my favorite. Excuse me. Okay, let's start with this one because it highlights something that I've mentioned previously for the cozy living room. Here we have a dining area and a kitchen that are integrated, and so here we have pretty much no color except for beige and white and varying shades of beige and white. But what makes this space interesting is the variety of textures. So here we have what looks like a jute rug that is made even more interesting by the pattern on it, and also the dining chairs that are like made of a natural material with lots of texture. We also have an exposed brick wall at the back here. It is painted white, but we can still see the texture of the brick. And we also have a pendant light that has like an interesting texture, like a rice paper lamp or something like that. And on the kitchen area, we have the sleek marble countertops, which I love. And we also have a little bit of tile. And the tiles are all somewhat different from one another, and this creates this interesting variation, and they are also not perfectly smooth, which creates like this interesting effect. And again, if you're into neutral interiors, varying texture will get you that designer intentional look. Moving on. Okay, this picture, when I saw this picture, I wanted to marry it, if that even makes sense. I'm so obsessed by this picture and this space that I would marry it if I could. Why do I love it so much? I love it because I think it's so interesting how they used architectural elements to bring interest to this space. if we didn't have like this curvy wooden trim around like this very common area of the house, it would just look like another regular house. They chose to highlight this very normal architectural element by using this very interesting, very rich brown wood in this wavy pattern. And I just love it. I'm obsessed with it. I'm sorry. And at the same time, look at the ceiling of the dining area. It's just so bold and so different. It makes this room like so unique. And in contrast, the rest of the room is pretty regular. You know, we don't even have a rug underneath the table. We have plain wood floors and a very beautiful, don't get me wrong, very beautiful dining table and dining chairs, which are black. Simple. I've seen a creator create this exact same pattern on a door trim using red paint. And I also think that it looks very good. I would prefer the wood because I'm not into bright colors, but it just goes to show how creative you can be in your own place. Okay, moving on. Right. This one is another super interesting one. Let's just forget for a minute that this looks to be a very high-end place with floor-to-ceiling glass panels that let in plenty of natural light. We all love that. But let's focus on the design elements here. This is a very interesting corner, like a dining nook, and it has like this design feel to it, doesn't it? And for me, this design feel comes from the huge, massive contrast between the tiny artwork and the massive pendant above the dining table. So if we had the pendant itself, this would already be a bold dining area. Large light fixtures can really make a space look more sophisticated and more curated, but this is taken to another level here because we have the tiny wall art right next to it. It's what makes this little corner look like it was designed by a designer. Okay, this is another one that I love also. I love dining areas, I don't know, pictures of dining areas are my thing. Here we have a very common kitchen, beautiful kitchen, and a very simple dining setup as well. But it's that feature wall on the kitchen that really makes this room stand out. They did this with two elements. The first one is this interesting pattern with the tiles. So they used white tiles and green tiles and they mixed them in like this unpredictable pattern, which I thought was like genius. I love it, super creative. But this red sconce, how unexpected it is that you have a red sconce on an already interesting wall on the kitchen. It's just so unexpected in terms of placement and in terms of color. I don't know if you've heard, but there is like a theory called the unexpected red theory or element, I don't know, don't trust me. Basically says that if you throw any red element in any room, it would instantly make the room feel much more interesting and designer-ish. For example, I chose this red pendant light here for my dining area, and it is basically one of the only pops of color in my room, and I think that it makes a huge difference. Okay, coming back to the picture. The unexpected red in contrast with the green, and okay, so this makes it even more contrasting because red and green are complementary colors, so they sit opposite to each other on the color wheel, and so like this you get the highest level of contrast. Okay, so let's finish it off because this video is getting way too long with this one here. And there's something specific that I'd like to highlight about this one. Okay, so this seems to be like a studio apartment or like a very tiny space, but it is super well designed. It's so modern and so intentional that it makes me want to live here. And I think one of the main reasons here is how they style unexpected places. Like, would you place a vintage art piece on top of your sink? I think this is something that is so unexpected and it's so unusual that it makes this space feel intentional. No one other than a designer would style a kitchen shelf, know what I mean? And there's this very, very sleek wall sconce, black wall sconce here, that a black wall sconce will change your space. It will transform any space. And so they used this other element to really make this kitchen way more interesting than it would look if it didn't have all these elements on display. Styling unexpected places of the home will definitely make it look more designer-ish. Okay guys, I guess that's it. I do have another couple pictures that I had selected to show you, but this video is probably already way too long. So if you like this format, I could bring more videos like this. I could even focus on one specific part of the house, like if you want inspiration for just bedrooms, just bathrooms. I love bathrooms. I would love to do a bathroom version of this video. Kitchens, dining areas, you name it. If you like this format, do let me know in the comments. And of course, don't forget to leave a like if you liked the content and subscribe to the channel. It would be nice to have you here. As always, thank you so much for watching and I'll see you next time.